fans, welcome back to Room 237 as I continue my marathon of Italian horror and Giallo films. And for this, I have a Giallo from 1972, and it is I in the Labyrinth. This is the Code Red DVD. It was directed by Mario Ciano, if I pronounce that correctly. Every time I see this cover, I keep thinking that's Rutger Hauer. May he rest in peace. Stars Rosemary Dexter, Horst Frank, who Horst Frank is that guy. Adolfo Celli, and Alida Valli, who was sort of the head teacher in Suspiria. Great Italian villainous actress. Also has Sybil Danning, who was in Red Queen Kills 7 Times. And it was written by Horst Hackler. And the music, it says screenplay by Horst Hackler, but story and screenplay by the director and Antonio Segura. Now, in the music, which I've been praising a lot of Italian scores lately, but this one I'm actually kind of a little indifferent on. The music in this was done by Roberto Nicolosi, and it's a very upbeat, jazzy score, which I don't mind, and it was used well. You know, when crazy things are happening, it's more upbeat. When it's more mellow or less going on, the music's quieter. But it is like a big jazzy score, which, I didn't dislike it. This is a very different Giallo, which I always get excited when there's a different kind of Giallo. It had a twist that I didn't see coming. But the premise for this one is, it's still a murder mystery, of course, but is trying to solve the murder of one person, and it has kind of a Wicker Man type setting and vibe, in the sense that our lead is in a strange place with strange people, where I thought it was her husband, but they say boyfriend in here, but I thought it was her husband. But, her significant other, who she had a dream that he was killed. Then she goes looking for him. She hears about this place. And when she goes there, there's a group of strange, eccentric people who... It's also a very idyllic place, like a villa on the water. And they don't want her to leave. They all seem like they know more than they're letting on. And it's not culty, but you can tell it's a strange group of people as to why they're all there. And it's her trying to figure out what happened to her lover while he was at this place, even though everyone says that he wasn't there. And every time more information can be given to her, it sets things in motion for all the other people that are there. They're trying to cover it up. So even though it's not a cult like Wicker Man, it sort of has kind of that premise where it's this beautiful, idyllic place to be, where the stranger is trying to find someone who's supposedly murdered, and all the eccentric people there are not completely honest with her. It gets to the point where they don't really want her to leave. And I thought it was well done. Is it one of my favorite Giallos? No. Am I going to praise it as much as some of the previous ones I've done? No. But I still thought it was fairly well done. I thought Rosemary Dexter did a good job with her lead performance as Julie. I liked the character of Frank, who's Adolfo Celli, this older guy. Really liked Alita Valli as the head of this villa. Of course, she always does great as just this she's great at looking and acting sinister. And then, of course, the twist I didn't see coming. I thought the way it explained everything that led up to that point, because this is one of those Giallos where there's hints of things that you'll pick up on that you're like, well, that doesn't quite seem right. But then after the twist, when it explains it, you're like, oh, that's genius. That's very well done. There's not much to say about. It was put out by Bryanston Pictures, which, if I'm not mistaken, I know that was the name of it, but pretty sure Bryanston was the crooked mob-run company that put out and then screwed everyone in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Doesn't say anything on here about it, but exclusively through Bryanston Pictures. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Bryanston was the name of that company. But, yeah, in fact, it can't be. But I know Bryanston was the name of that. I haven't heard too many people talk about this Giallo, and Labyrinth, the only real Labyrinth thing about it is in her dream when her lover, which this says Luca. It says Luca on the back, and even in the cast it says Luca, but everyone calls him Lucas. He's being chased through this labyrinthian, almost like a warehouse, stone walls, and that's where he's killed. And he's a psychiatrist, so she goes to his office. This one patient screams at this place, and when she goes to investigate it, first she ends up in this town where she meets Frank, who puts her up in a room, like this boarding house / orphanage, and then he tells her about the villa, which she swims to for whatever reason, and that's where she encounters Valli and the eccentrics. There's this one couple who, they're actors. There's this one guy who's always recording things and making tapes out of it. There's this one guy, Lewis, who's much younger than Alita Valli, but you find out he's kind of like her sex toy. He has a thing for acid, so she just keeps him pumped full of acid. When she first gets there, they're all sunbathing, and they have seashells on their eyes and earplugs in. There's another woman there who's a photographer. She's the one played by Sybil Danning. And as the film goes on, you find out they're all there for a certain reason. They all have secrets. I thought Sayano's direction was nice. There's certain scenes, like when someone will slowly reveal something about Lucas to Julie. Like there's this one scene where the Sybil Danning's character says he attempted to rape her while he was there. It's shown without audio, except for her voiceover telling the story. And I always think that's a nice way to, like, whenever something like that is happening, having no audio at least of what's going on, is an interesting way to show it. And the whole time this is going on, I mean, obviously, Alina Volley, she's the one pulling the strings. And Frank is the one who is seemingly trying to help Julie. He's acting as her ally. He's the one that's trying to get all this information about Lucas for, like, the guy. I'm trying to think of when I should get the spoilers. Well, there's one point where she gets a phone call, and it's supposedly from Lucas. And it sounds like, hello, can you hear me? I can't hear you. And then it's lost. Coming to find out, the guy that's always recording stuff made a tape at Volley, her character's name is Gerda, at Gerda's request. Frank found this out, showed it to Julie. This one boy that lived at the orphanage where she first stayed at, where Frank lives. We find out Frank had a very, he was a former gangster in America. He once owned the orphanage building, and he owned the villa at one point. Now he's just down to one room in the orphanage as like a sort of like a boarding room. So, and this boy that lived there is a great painter, and he paints everything he sees. He was gonna give Julie a painting of a knight before she left, but then Frank showed this painting to Gerda when he showed up, because he's not allowed back at the villa. You find out him and Gerda had a bad past. But when he flips the knight painting over, it depicts an act of Lucas being stabbed. So, but it seems like Frank is playing both people. He's trying to help Julie solve this mystery of what happened to Lucas and who, but also working with Gerda. And we're not quite sure why. That's where the twist comes in. We're not sure what... I mean, he says he wants his house back. He wants to live back at the villa. But at the same time, it seems like Julie is also moving in on the young boy toy that Gerda has. And it all culminates to this one moment where we find out what the villa's for. And I'm not quite sure if that... I'll just get to spoilers. I do recommend this Giallo. It's very different. It's definitely more of trying to solve this murder of one person, but it's a stranger in a strange land kind of story. There is a great feeling of claustrophobia throughout this film. Movies like Wicker Man, or where people go trying to find someone or trying to figure something out and then they can't leave. There's a great sense of claustrophobia, and I think this does a good job with it. And it's beautifully shot. I mean, the way, because it's a villa up on a cliff by the water. It's beautifully shot. It looks great. And Julie does become more and more desperate to figure out what happened to Lucas. So, I do recommend this. It's very different, but it all pays off with the twist. So with that, I'll get into spoilers. At one point, Julie finds that Frank has that painting, the double-sided painting. And she knows that the boy at the orphanage painted it because he was going to give it to her, but then he ran off because Frank came to talk to Julie. So she goes to talk to him, but of course, her car's blocked in. She has to take a different car. He says he'll only tell her if she kisses him, because he's watched her sleep naked, sunbathe a couple times. So she says that she'll kiss him, and he shows her the point of where he painted it, where he could see everything that happens at the villa. He painted it. He knows who the person in the painting is that's killing Lucas, but she won't kiss him and he won't tell her. So she drags him into the car and says, I'm taking you to the police. They'll make you talk. But she's driving kind of erratically, I think trying to scare him. They wreck. He's bleeding from the head, won't wake up. So she decides to go get help, but she leans against the back of the car, lights a cigarette, and then she tosses the match. We see it's pissing gas everywhere, but she tosses the match, it lights up. She tries to get the kid out. He's screaming as he's burning to death. She can't get him out, and he dies. Eventually, Frank goes and pushes the car into the off the cliff. Now we find out the villa is actually a distribution center for drugs. Her yacht has all the drugs. Everyone that's there is working for Gerda. And Frank was once the kingpin, but he got pushed out. So now he is trying to work his way back in, but he doesn't want all those people there. So that's why he's playing both Gerda and Julie. Now, the moment that comes up is Julie kind of starts to submit to life there. They're pulling in this net, everyone's down by the water, and Lucas's body is in it. She decides to run off. And everyone's kind of cornering her, trying to stop her. The young boy toy Lewis is able to get her free. Gerda shoots him with a harpoon gun. And Julie is able to flee to police. Now Frank tells Gerda this. He doesn't stop her. They pass each other on the road. He doesn't stop her because it's part of his plan. And so he tells her that, she's gone to the police. They can't risk the police going there because it's a drug center. So they all pile in the yacht and they leave. So he gets his house back. Julie, on the other hand, this is when Frank tells her that she killed Frank. Because here's the thing. She finds his head. Yes, his head. Because the body had no head. But then she finds the head. This is when we get this scene. When he tells her. And he knew it was her that killed Frank. Because in the painting, the killer is wearing a unique pair of pants. And he went through her suitcase and found that same pair of pants. So he knew it was her. Yes. Not only was she Lucas's lover, but also his patient. And she had this sort of worship complex. She worshipped him because he took care of her. And he pretty much dumped her. So she found out where he went to this villa, was able to go there, killed him, and then slipped out while everyone was having one of their seashell earplug sunbathing sessions. And so Frank, and also we learned that through a flashback with Lucas, her father left her mother when she was like 2. Now she always looks for a man to kind of control or run her life, and she falls in love with him. But that kind of trauma also gave her these killer urges that she's able to repress the acts of once she commits them. So, it looks like she sets the car on fire on purpose or carelessly. it's because she is. Even if she's doing things subconsciously. She actually thought the car fire with the boy was an accident. But that's why when we see her set it, she just kind of throws the match. But that was all planned. And then as soon as she commits it, almost after she sleeps on it, she's able to wipe it clean. Like, she actually went to this place at the beginning of the film thinking Lucas was still alive and that she was going to find him. She was able to wipe the entire murder from her memory. And so Frank was able to play it off like there was a killer there and, sort of get her to get the police involved so that he could get Gerda and all those people and the drugs out of his house so he can have the house back. Also, while she's there, there's some interesting things like people revealing that Lucas was kind of playing psychiatrist with everyone and pulling secrets out of people. Like the guy with the recording equipment, Lucas was able to get him to reveal that he spent years in an insane asylum. Or that the girlfriend the wife, that's the actress who's the wife of the other actor, is actually a man. So, yeah, I could have said that earlier, but it's not really part of the twist. We find that out, earlier on in the film. But Frank also has a thing for Julia, so he thinks that he can be that god or that controlling male figure in her life that she can love, which she seems to accept, but he's not very nice to her. So in the final scene, it shows Frank and her sitting by the pool. She's humming. He tells her to stop or hum something else and to grab him a beer. While we see the police fishing out a briefcase that belonged to the kid. Because he told the woman that runs the orphanage that he was going to go with Gerda to Greece, the kid was. But he took his suitcase and threw it out the cliff where he dumped the car. So while we're seeing that go on, she goes in to get him his beer, and when he comes out, she gives him his beer. The camera pans up to her. She takes out a knife. And then we get this great slow motion shot looking up. She's in silhouette because the sun's behind her. It's a great looking shot of her just driving the knife into him. We hear the sirens in the background get louder. Because I'm guessing they tracked the murder to the villa. Freeze frame, end of movie. So I didn't see that coming. I didn't think it was going to be like a Shutter Island type ending where it's like even though you're here looking for someone, you're the one that killed this person. I didn't really have a good feeling about Frank throughout this entire movie. There were points where I'm like, okay, maybe he is the good guy, but I always had a feeling about him throughout the whole film. But I didn't see it being her, being, a psychiatric patient, fell in love with her doctor, killed him, wiped it clean, and is now going to look for him. So it's a very different Giallo, but, it's still a murder mystery, and it did well, or everything it did differently with the formula, I thought it did well. I do like the kind of Wicker Man, Stranger Strangeland kind of setting and how it played that out, and the growing tension throughout the entire film. I thought was well done. So it's very different. It's not one of my favorite Giallos, but it's very decent. I enjoyed it. So that's 1972's Eye in the Labyrinth. Stay tuned for more Italian horror and Giallo films. Thank you for watching.